was the kind of deep, suffocating quiet that only exists miles from the nearest town. The kind of quiet where the house itself seems to breathe with you. I was in rural Texas, staying at my uncle's old ranch house, a place where the wind whistling through the mesquite trees is usually the loudest thing you will hear all night. Tonight, though, something else cut through the silence. My eyes snapped open. The red glow of the digital clock on the bedside table read 2:41 a.m. Every instinct I had was screaming. I held my breath, listening. And then I heard it, a sound from the front door. It wasn't a knock. It wasn't a scratch. It was breathing, slow, deep, and heavy, like a giant bellows, an in and out rhythm that was so loud, so guttural, it seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden, terrifying silence. Who could possibly be out here at this hour? And why were they just standing there, breathing? I slid out of bed, my feet hitting the cold wooden floor without a sound. The moonlight filtered weakly through the living room windows, casting long, distorted shadows that danced like specters. I crept towards the door, my mind racing through 1,000 impossible scenarios. A lost traveler, an animal. No, this was different. This sound was deliberate. It was patient. I reached the entryway, my back pressed flat against the wall. The breathing was right there, on the other side of the thin wooden door. Inhale. A long, ragged draw of air. Exhale. A wet, gurgling release. It was the sound of something impossibly large, and it didn't sound human. I peered through the peephole. My blood ran cold. There was nothing there. Just the empty porch, the dusty yard stretching out into the inky blackness of the Texas night. The moon cast an eerie silver glow on the familiar landscape, but there was no person, no animal, nothing. Yet the breathing continued. Louder now, as if it knew I was watching. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Was I losing my mind? Was this some kind of waking nightmare? I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, my fingers trembling so badly I could barely unlock it. I needed to record this. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. I hit the record button and held the phone up, pointing it towards the door. The breathing sound seemed to intensify, filling the small house, pressing in on me from all sides. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The silence that followed was somehow more terrifying than the noise itself. I stood frozen for what felt like an eternity, my ear pressed against the door, listening for any hint of movement, any footstep crunching on the gravel outside. Nothing. Just the familiar, lonely whistle of the wind. After several long minutes, I cautiously turned the deadbolt. My hand was shaking as I pulled the door open a crack, then wider, until I was standing on the porch, scanning the darkness. The yard was empty. The long dirt road leading to the house was deserted. There was no one there. Had I imagined it all? Was it just a symptom of being alone in an old, creaking house in the middle of nowhere? I went back inside, locking the door and checking it 3 times. I couldn't bring myself to go back to bed. I sat on the couch, watching the first hints of dawn break over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. I replayed the recording on my phone. My own shaky breaths were there. The creak of the floorboards, the frantic beat of my own heart. And underneath it all, faint but unmistakable, was the sound. The slow, deep, heavy breathing. It wasn't my imagination. Something was out there, and it knew I was here. I've never been back to that house, and I don't think I ever will be. Some things you just don't need to find an explanation for. Thanks for listening. If you've ever had a similar unexplained experience, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Stay safe out there. The old house creaked and groaned around me, each sound a new note in its symphony of decay. I'd been hearing it for what felt like hours, rhythmic, heavy breathing, just outside the front door. At first, I'd dismissed it as the wind, maybe a branch scraping against the siding. But the sound was too consistent, too alive. It was a deep guttural inhale and exhale, like a massive animal resting on my porch. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the slow, steady rhythm from outside. I told myself it was just my imagination, that the storm was playing tricks on me. The power had been out for hours, and the only light came from the flickering candle on the coffee table, casting long, dancing shadows that turned familiar shapes into monstrous figures. I crept closer to the door, my bare feet silent on the cold floorboards. The breathing seemed to get louder with every step I took, a chilling bass that vibrated through the wood. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear anything else, footsteps, a rustle, anything to identify the source. But there was only the breathing. It was so close, so powerful. It felt like the entire door was expanding and contracting with each breath. I imagined some huge, shadowy beast hunched on my doorstep, its hot breath fogging the peephole. A shiver traced its way down my spine, cold and sharp. Why wasn't it moving? What was it waiting for? I backed away slowly, my eyes locked on the doorknob, half expecting it to turn. My back hit the wall of the hallway, and I jumped, a small yelp escaping my lips. I clamped a hand over my mouth, my own breathing now ragged and loud in the silence of the house. I stood there, frozen, listening. The breathing outside continued, unchanged. It didn't react to my noise. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. An animal would have been startled. A person would have called out, or tried to handle. But this thing just kept breathing. It was unnerving, a patient, predatory stillness that was far more terrifying than any aggressive act. I scanned the living room, my mind racing. The windows were dark, black mirrors reflecting the single, lonely flame of my candle. There was no escape. I had to be sure. I had to know what was out there. Gathering every ounce of courage I had left, I slid along the wall back towards the front door. My plan was stupid, suicidal, but I couldn't stand the not knowing anymore. I would peek through the window next to the door. Just a quick glance. I reached the edge of the window frame, my body trembling. The breathing was a constant, deafening roar in my ears now. I took a deep, shaky breath, holding it as I prepared to look. But then, something stopped me, a subtle change in the sound. It wasn't just the volume. The quality was different. It sounded clearer, less muffled by the thick oak of the door, and that's when the blood in my veins turned to ice. It was a realization so sudden and so horrifying that my breath hitched in my throat, trapped. The sound wasn't coming from outside. The breathing wasn't on the porch. The storm, the house settling, the shadows, they were all distractions. All this time I had been focused on the door, on what lay beyond it, but the sound wasn't being filtered through wood and insulation. It was raw. It was close. It was in the house with me. The breathing, that deep, heavy, monstrous breathing, was coming from right behind the door, from inside the hallway, just a few feet away from where I stood, and I had just turned my back on it. The knocking stopped. Just stopped. Silence flooded the hallway, thick and heavy, pressing in on my ears. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I held my breath, listening. Nothing. No footsteps crunching on the gravel outside. No rustling in the bushes. Justa whined a low, mournful whistle through the eaves of the old house. For a full minute, I stayed frozen, plastered against the wall, my hands still clutching the doorknob. The cold brass was biting into my palm. Maybe they gave up. Maybe it was just some kids. A stupid prank. Yeah, that had to be it. I tried to make my breathing even. Tried to slow the jackhammering in my chest. It was just a joke. But the breathing, I could still hear it. A faint, wet sound, like someone with a bad cold trying to breathe through their mouth. It hadn't stopped with the knocking. It was still there, a constant, unsettling rhythm just on the edge of my hearing, and it wasn't coming from outside anymore. Slowly, I pushed myself off the wall. My legs felt like lead. Primera de... Tu no I had to see who was out there. Oh, what? My hand trembled as I reached for the peephole. The little brass cover felt impossibly heavy. I took a deep, shaky breath and forced myself to look. My eye pressed against the cool glass, and I scanned the porch. Empty. The old rocking chair sat still, no one in it. The welcome mat was undisturbed. No shadows loomed by the pillars. No one was hiding behind the overgrown rose bushes that flanked the steps. It was completely, utterly empty. A wave of relief, so powerful it almost made me dizzy. Was said over me. It was nothing. My mind was playing tricks on me. The stress of moving into this place, being all alone out here. It was getting to me. I chuckled. A weak, airy sound. I was losing it. I pulled my head back from the door, ready to go make myself a strong cup of coffee and laugh this whole thing off, but the breathing didn't stop. And it was louder now. Much, much louder. It wasn't coming from the porch. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It was right here. Right next to me. A slow, guttural, wet inhale directly behind my ear. My phone vibrates, a sudden buzz against the wooden tabletop that makes me jump. Primera gla, down my heart, doing a little stutter step in my chest. Unknown number. My brow furrows. I don't get texts from unknown numbers. Ever. Reluctantly, I tap the notification, my thumb hovering over the screen. The message is short, just for words, but they send a chill cascading down my spine. We're still outside. We. Who's we? My mind races, flipping through a Rolodex of possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. A prank. A wrong number? But there's a cold certainty settling in my gut that tells me this is neither. I push my chair back, the legs scraping against the floor, and creep towards the window. Peeking through a tiny gap in the blinds, I scan the empty street. A lone street lamp casts a sickly yellow glow on the wet pavement. Nothing. No cars. No people. Just the quiet hum of the sleeping neighborhood. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding, my shoulders slumping in relief. It has to be a joke. A stupid, tasteless joke. Then I hear it. A sound from behind me. From inside the house. A soft, wet inhalation. It's rhythmic, like someone struggling to breathe through fluid. I freeze, every muscle in my body tensing. I'm not alone. The sound is close. Too close. It's filled with a kind of excitement, a gurgling, eager anticipation that makes the hair on my arms stand on end. My phone feels like a lead weight in my hand. We're still outside. The words echo in my mind. A cruel, taunting lie. They were never outside. They were already in. My gaze dots around the dimly lit living room. Shadows stretch and twist, playing tricks on my eyes. The grandfather clock in the corner seems to tick louder, each second a hammer blow against my sanity. Where is it? Where is the source of that horrible, wet breathing? I slowly, deliberately, turn my head towards the hallway leading to the back of the house. It's a corridor of pure darkness, an inky black void that my eyes can't penetrate. And from that darkness, the sound comes again, closer. This time, a wet, slurping gasp, followed by a low, contented sigh. It knows I'm here. It knows I've read the message. This isn't a prank. This is a game, and I've just been told it's my turn to play. My hand trembles as I raise my phone again, my thumb fumbling to dial. 911. I have to call for help, but as I press the first digit, a new text message illuminates the screen from the same unknown number. It's a single word, don't. The breathing in the hallway stops. Complete, utter silence descends upon the house. The quiet is somehow more terrifying than the noise. It's a waiting silence. A patient silence. It's letting me make the next move. My heart is a frantic bird, trapped in my ribcage. I'm a fly caught in a spider's web, and I can feel the silken threads tightening with every passing moment. What do they want, and how do they get inside? The questions spiral, unanswered, as I stand. Trapped between a silent hallway and a phone that has become my tormentor, I'm starting to think I won't live to see the morning. It's just after 10 at night. The city lights bleed through my blinds, painting stripes across the living room carpet. I'm sunk deep into the couch, the glow of my phone the only real light in the room, scrolling through endless memes and videos. You know how it is? Just another Tuesday. That's when my phone buzzes, not with a text, but with a notification from my new security camera app. Motion detected at your front door. I almost ignore it. Probably just a stray cat, or the wind rattling the welcome mat. But a weird little flicker of curiosity, or maybe paranoia, makes me tap the notification. The live feed loads. A grainy, night vision view of my own front porch. And my heart just stops. My blood runs cold. Standing there, right on my doorstep, is me? It's not a reflection. It's not some weird glitch. It's a person. A man who looks exactly like me. Same messy brown hair I haven't bothered to comb all day. Same faded gray hoodie I'm wearing right now. Same tired eyes. He's just standing there, inches from the door, completely still. I can't. Breathe. My mind is racing, trying to find a logical explanation. Is this a prank? A pre-recorded video somehow playing on a loop? But then, on the screen, he moves. His head tilts. Who's slightly like he's listening. And then his mouth. His mouth stretches open. Wider than it should. It's not a yawn, not a scream. It's a silent, black, gaping hole in the face that's supposed to be mine. I can see his chest rising and falling on the pixelated screen. He's breathing. He's breathing my air. Right outside my door. My phone feels like a block of ice in my hand. I'm watching myself, an impossible version of myself, just standing there, waiting. I lower the phone, my own breathing ragged and loud in the silent apartment. My eyes dart to the front door, just a few feet away. There's no sound, no knock, no scratching, nothing. Just the low hum of the refrigerator. Is he really out there? Or is this some kind of digital ghost? A nightmare delivered by my Wi-Fi. My thumb hovers over the 911 icon. What do I even say? There's a man outside my door, and he's me. They'd think I was crazy. Maybe I am. Maybe the stress of this year has finally cracked me wide open. Primera beto. No, I have to be sure. My heart is hammering against my ribs like it wants out. Slowly, silently. I push myself off the couch. Each step on the floorboards feels like a thunderclap. I creep towards the door, my eyes fixed on the peephole, a tiny circle of brass that feels like a portal to another dimension. My hand is shaking so bad I can barely steady it against the wood. Primerata. Kaya, deep, shuddering breath, trying to silence the frantic drumbeat in my ears. I lean in, press my eye to the cold metal, and look. The porch is empty. The motion sensor light is off. There's nothing there. Just the quiet, empty night. A wave of relief so powerful it almost makes me dizzy washes over me. A glitch. It had to be a glitch. A server error. Some bizarre, terrifying bug in the system. I let out a shaky laugh, leaning my forehead against the cool wood of the door. Then, a soft tap. From the other side, I freeze. The sound was so quiet, I almost thought I imagined it. Then, another one. Tap. Tap, tap, snotta. Knock. It's lighter. A fingernail, maybe, tapping gently against the wood, right where my head is resting. I snatch my phone back up, my fingers fumbling with the screen. I pull up the live feed again. The porch is still empty. The app shows nothing. No motion. No person, but I can still hear it. Tap. Tap. A playful, patient, little rhythm. And then, a voice, a whisper, seeping through the door. So low it's more of a feeling than a sound. It's my voice. And it says, "Let me in." I stumble backward, my back hitting the wall hard. My phone clatters to the floor, the screen showing an empty porch. But I know what I heard. I know who's out there. The tapping stops, and it's replaced by a new sound. A low, wet, guttural breathing, right on the other side of the door. The same breathing I saw on the screen. He's here. He's really here. And I don't know what he wants, but I know one thing. I can't let him in. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries I've ever come across. This isn't just a story. It's a puzzle with a missing piece that has haunted investigators and armchair detectives for years. Imagine this: a quiet suburban street, a family home that looks like any other, but inside, a scene so baffling it defies easy explanation. Our story begins in a small, peaceful tune, the kind of place where everyone knows their neighbors and kids play in the street until the sun goes down. But on one particular night, that peace was shattered forever. The official timeline of events is where things start to get strange. We have police reports, neighbor testimonies, and a single, cryptic piece of evidence that seems to contradict everything else. Let's walk through it together. At 10 p.m., the family was seen returning home. Neighbors reported hearing nothing unusual. The lights in the house went off around 11 p.m., which was typical. The first sign that something was wrong came the next morning when a delivery driver noticed the front door was slightly ajar. He called the police, and what they found inside has been the subject of intense debate ever since. There were no signs of forced entry, nothing was stolen, and there was no indication of a struggle. It was as if the family had simply vanished. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. The investigators discovered a home security camera, one the family had recently installed. They eagerly reviewed the footage, hoping it would provide answers. Instead, it only deepened the mystery. The camera, positioned in the downstairs hallway, captured hours of absolute stillness. Nothing moved. There was no sound. It was just a silent, static image of an empty hallway. That is, until the final few minutes of the recording. The timestamp on the footage reads 2:41 a.m. For the first time in hours, a sound is picked up. It's faint, but it's unmistakably the sound of slow, rhythmic breathing. It seems to be coming from just out of the camera's view, near the front door. The breathing continues for exactly 1 minute. Then, at 2:42 a.m., the doorknob of the front door begins to turn. It turns slowly, deliberately, not from the outside, but from the inside. Just as the latch clicks, the breathing stops. The recording cuts to black. They paints. So, what happened in that house? Who or what was breathing in the hallway? Why did the door open from the inside? And where did the family go? Theories range from a meticulously planned disappearance to something far more sinister and unexplainable. Some believe a hidden person was in the house the entire time, waiting. Others point to the complete lack of physical evidence as a sign of something that defies conventional logic. This case is a stark reminder that sometimes the most terrifying stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers. The absence of evidence becomes the evidence itself, pointing to a void that our minds struggle to fill. What do you think happened? I've read every theory out there, and honestly, none of them fully explain that final, chilling minute of footage. Drop your theories in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear what you all think. This is one of those cases that sticks with you. A true modern mystery that remains unsolved. Thanks for watching, and if you're as fascinated by these kinds of stories as I am, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. See you in the next one.